Today we interview British influencer in China, LivinlavidaLuke. Hey everyone, I'm Jason Smith. I'm originally from sunny California. Now I'm living in beautiful Beijing. Luke is getting his doctorate in China, studying the uses of big data and AI on medical applications. Maybe we can have some time to ask him about that. For months, he has been living in Xinjiang, China. Welcome back to the Bridge to China, Luke.
Hey, yeah, thank you so much. It's good to catch up again. I'm sure there's lots to talk about.
Well, before we get to Xinjiang, why don't we ask you about, your PhD again? I know we already did this, but I think it's really exciting. You are studying how large language models, is that right? Or am I misinterpreting that, are able to detect cancer and diseases before they materialize? I don't, could you explain it? I don't know what I'm talking about. You explain it.
So it's not large language models. I'm just essentially using an AI which takes in an image. So you go for a biopsy, for example, you're suspected of having cancer, you get a biopsy, and instead of looking under the microscope and passing it to other hospitals, where it could get damaged and all of these kind of things, you can do it much quicker. You can do it with AI, and it will take around 1 or 2 seconds, and it will tell you, okay, this person has X amount of cancer cells, and then based on that, you can say, all right, this is how severe the cancer is, and then from then you can also do some prognosis. So yeah, we're seeing this a lot. We're using it a lot around in China at the moment. A lot of hospitals I've worked with firsthand, and they're using a lot of AI. I just went back to the UK around a year ago. I've got some friends who are doctors in the NHS, and they're saying, well, it's not really used at all. It's very much behind. I'm not too sure about how much it's utilized in American hospitals, but in China, they're really trying to implement AI into everyday life. Whereas I guess the West, they're more focused on those, like you just said, the large language models, which is more about like a showcase. It's like about talking to a chatbot, which is cool and everything, but I think China, they're using it for the real, world purposes, which is great. So,
Well, let me just ask you about specificity. Like, is it better at detecting disease than a human doctor, or is it comparable?
it's better, yeah. It's shown to be, in some cases, around 20-30% more accurate. And especially with the early cases, because those are the ones which you might miss, because there are, hundreds of thousands potentially of nuclei and cells that you have, and it's very hard to detect those. They're so tiny. You've got to zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out. The AI, well, it can do it just like that. So, and the early stage cancer and many other diseases, maybe there's not too much differences to the healthy cells. So yeah, the AI absolutely has been shown to firstly be quicker, but more crucially, more accurate.
Wow. Well, so you're finishing your PhD, or I'm not exactly sure, but you decided at some point, let's move to Xinjiang, which is an unusual move for anyone. So, why did you decide to move to Xinjiang?
Yeah, so I've basically finished all my PhD work, and I I'm just waiting for the results. It's in China. There's a lot of processes. You've got to do a lot of presentations. To really show that you understand it and it's all okay. You've got to go through lots of steps. So I figured I don't really need to do too much research at this point now. And so why don't I just start a full-time job? And because of the work visa at the moment in China, I figured it would be easier to get some kind of teaching job because working for a company, a lot of them, they said, well, we kind of want you to have that PhD first. We want you to have that certificate. So I figured, yeah, temporarily, for now anyway, I'll be I'd be working as a teacher, and I looked at other places. I looked all around. I was looking at. I had a job offer in Foshan, and someone wisely said, "Nah, you don't want to go there. It's a little bit boring. The best thing about there maybe is Hong Kong. It's close to it. But I don't know. I'm not sure." And then I figured, well, why don't I? I'm not too bothered, too much about salary and these kind of things. Why don't I just go somewhere I really love? I've been to lots of times. I've been in Shanghai for a while. I always said in my head, I'm going to retire in Xinjiang. I love it. It's a great place to retire. But I thought, right, let's just do it. Let's just go, for a year in Xinjiang. So I applied for some jobs, and they were like, yeah, sure, we'd love you. So I went to this international school. I said for a year, but who knows? I'm loving it so far. Maybe it will go on further. But it's absolutely fantastic. I thought the salary would be really low, actually, but actually it's not too bad. So and because the cost of living is also lower than it would be in Shanghai, you can get really good rent and everything. I've been pleasantly surprised. It's been a fantastic experience so far.
Xinjiang is huge. You say you love it. Have you been to the north? Have you been to Altai? Have you been to Hamu County? I mean, have you been? Where are you now?
I'm currently in the capital, in Urumqi, and yeah, you're right. So I say I love Xinjiang, but really I haven't explored all of it at all. I feel like I have explored so many, but then I've got a great big map in my room. And I say, wait, no, I really haven't. There's still so much to explore. I've been to, because it's the summer holiday now, so I've been trying to explore a little bit. So I went to, Urumqi, Ili, Kashgar, Tashkurgan, Turpan, Karamai. Well, there are quite a few places, but yeah, you're right. There are some in the north I haven't been to quite yet, which I really want to. So Hami, love to go there. Altai, they've got I don't know if you know, there's a very popular TV show about it, and it's based on a book which I recently bought, and so a lot of tourists, they will go there because of this story. So that's one reason I'd love to go. But for sure, in Xinjiang, it's super diverse. It's 7 times larger than the whole of the United Kingdom.
Wow.
It's just ridiculously big. So the UK, I just got a little bit bored of. And I love the UK, but it's so small. But Xinjiang, you have, each city is totally different. I'm sure you've seen. Because firstly, you have the different minorities, right? It's not just the Uyghur people. We'll speak about it maybe later, right? But the different minorities in Xinjiang. So each city, each different region of Xinjiang, you have firstly the different foods, the different people, how they look, how they speak. So although it's very much a part of China, it's almost feel like you're traveling, totally different worlds out there. It's absolutely fantastic.
I was in Kashgar, a couple months ago, and then I went to Altai. I don't remember how we got. I think we flew. It's been a while, and when we landed, I saw all of this Arabic type writing everywhere, and I had to ask people with me, hey, is this Uyghur? And they were like, no, this is Kazakh, and it was surprised me, because I was just in, one of the things that gets said is that there's all the minority languages are disappearing, which is clearly not true, because when you're in the South, all of the signs are bilingual in Uyghur and in Chinese Hanzi. And then you go to the north, and then all the signs are bilingual again in Chinese Hanzi and also in Kazakh. So, it's just really fascinating because to me, the untrained eye, it just looked like the same writing. So I have no idea what I was even looking at. You speak some degree of Uyghur, is that right?
Yeah, I've been learning for the past few months, I suppose, on and off, so I can get by with the Uyghur language now. So yeah, I'm definitely not fluent, but I can certainly go out and about, introduce myself, maybe bargain with the taxi driver sometimes, this kind of stuff. And it's a
bargain
great
with the
way.
taxi drivers. Wow. Like
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not paying
absolutely.
full price.
Well, I don't know. In Xinjiang, have you seen you have these things called the black cabs, and so like you
Oh,
you put your
wow.
hand out on the roads, and it's just a regular person. I don't think they would have a taxi license, and they would just flash their lights at you and say, "Hey, you go into the Grand Bazaar. Yeah, okay, great." And maybe as a foreigner, they might give you a high price. So if you can speak the language, they'll be like, "Oh, okay, okay, give you the fair price."
It's like hitchhiking, but you pay. That's really interesting, actually.
It's really convenient. Yeah, it's amazing. So you can get a taxi anytime, anywhere.
Well, okay, let's just talk about food for a moment. You know, what do people in that part of the world eat, and what do you like about it?
Sure. It's probably my favorite food in China. I love it. It's there's so many variations. Wow. There's one of my favorites. It's called a cow baozi. In Uyghur, they call it samsa, and it's like this a bun which you bake, and then you put lamb, and you might put some vegetables and onions and stuff inside it. And the reason I love that is because it's so similar to this British cuisine we call a pasty. We have it as a Cornish pasty. We have beef, but it tastes just the same. So maybe it's not the most delicious food out there, but for me it is because it's like very nostalgic. I really like that. But they have so much. They have so many types of noodles. They have lots of uh, chicken and lamb dishes, which are really nice. There's this one called, it's a very weird one to translate into English. It's da panji. If you translate that, it means big plate chicken, which sounds a bit weird, but it's fantastic. It's quite spicy. So the Xinjiang foods is they do have a lot of spice added to it. And one interesting thing, I've been traveling recently around Central Asia, and I've noticed it's kind of like some variations of the food around there. So they have some rice dishes, that chicken dish, the noodles. It's all actually kind of similar, I suppose, because it was on, maybe on the Silk Roads, a lot of traveling through. They would have shared these dishes once upon a time. So in a way, the food's similar. But for example, when I went to, um, I think it was Uzbekistan, and they don't use lamb, but they would use venison. To use some of that. So I was a bit worried to try, so I didn't go for it. But yeah, they might use some different ingredients here and there. But the Xinjiang foods, well worth trying. I know in the UK they have a couple of Uyghur restaurants. So for any foreign listeners out there, maybe there'll be some Uyghur restaurants I really, really recommend. Absolutely delicious.
You know, I've been several times. I've been to various places to eat, but I'm never sure what I'm eating. Is this Kazakh food? Is this Uyghur food? Or because like different things are different restaurants are dramatically differently. I went to I don't know, last year. I was in Xinjiang, in the south, close to in the Taklamakan Desert, and we went to a place with, I guess, they look like Mongolian style tents everywhere, and there was just piles of food. It was so much food. But my impression after the fact is maybe this is Tuvan food, which is like a sub branch of Mongolian minority groups that have come to this area. But I'm not actually sure what kind of food it was. I'm actually want to go back to the taxi thing because I'm really thinking about this now. Do you have any? Because popping into someone's car in a foreign place that sounds really bold to me. Actually, I don't think I would do that. So, could you tell us? Did you have any interesting, fascinating stories in taking these black cabs?
Oh yeah, I remember the first time I came to Xinjiang, and I was a bit overwhelmed because I was standing on the side of the road, and so many cars. They were just flashing their lights. They were honking the horn, all at me, and they were like waving. I was like, what did I do? Did I do something wrong? Um, maybe they were warning me about something. But so it's good to be aware of that beforehand. And actually, at that time, the first time I went, there was not really a Didi, like the Chinese Uber. It's only in the past 2 years that they've really integrated that into Xinjiang. So and now it's a lot easier, so you don't need to rely on that. But it is out there, and yeah, it's. I will go in the car, and often they will look at me and look, there's not many foreigners here. They'll speak Uyghur to me, and I'll reply back, and and they'll look at me for again a couple seconds, and they think, it can't be like well, how can a foreigner speak Uyghur? But it's funny sometimes getting their reaction. Look at me. Occasionally, they will think, oh, there's something odd here, maybe a little bit of an accent. So I'll often get, are you Uzbek? Because they can't fathom, a European or a white guy learning their language. Even I might not look Uzbek, but the Uzbek language is very similar. So they thought, oh, maybe there's something off there. And as soon as I say, oh, I'm a foreigner in their language, they're like, well, totally mind blown. And they're very, very open, and they're very interested. And then we have some great chats. And often, I'm surprised, they really like the British cultures. A lot of the Xinjiang people, they really like, firstly, they like football or soccer. And they'll always be asking me about that. And then secondly, a very common thing, they really like British music. And so they'll be like, oh my gosh, do you know, especially British rap, which I was very surprised about. Maybe even you don't know, there's this guy called Central C, very popular, I just thought in the UK, but also in Xinjiang. And they'd be like, oh my God, I really like this British rapper, let me show you his music. I'm like, I know. And they'll be singing it to me and stuff. So yeah, we get that connection. So that's why I love it. It's great.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, let's talk about culture a little bit. What do you think of people outside of this part of the world get wrong about Xinjiang, about Uyghurs, about minorities, about culture, anything, from your perspective?
Well, I'd say, first of all, a lot of people, maybe they say they care about Xinjiang, these activists and everything, and then you ask them, oh, well, can you tell me something about Xinjiang? Can you tell me maybe something about the Uyghur people, the language? Now, I don't even know it's a Turkic language. They don't know anything about what they look like even. So I think that's the first thing. They talk about people they don't know anything about, really. And that's kind of why I do some of my videos. I just want to show, these are the Uyghur people, and this is their real lives and stuff. But secondly, yeah, also a lot of people, maybe they don't know the context of Xinjiang and what's happened there in the past decades, really. So indeed, there has been some unfortunate attacks on the Xinjiang region. There have been some terrorism in this place. And I've spoken to some colleagues, and they know people who have been affected by this, and it's really hard for them. And it's a dark time. And so at that point, very few Chinese would want to go to Xinjiang. It was kind of seen as a dangerous place. And so, of course, what do you do in this situation? There were maybe some restrictions and things like this. And I think at the peak of that, when there were some, when these terrorist attacks happened, this was kind of exaggerated and blown out of proportion. And in fact, actually, Xinjiang has opened up a lot since then. And now it's become actually genuinely the safest place single-handedly that I have been to. It might surprise people about that. There's not been any attacks in, I don't know, several years now. And tourism, there's a big boom of that. People, they're very happy to come here. So I think there had to be, some earlier policies and things like this, which people kind of said, "Oh, it's still happening," da, 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 da. And a lot of it, they did get it twisted, and it's not quite right. They weren't here; they didn't see how it actually was. But actually, the people I've spoken to are very happy. Life is great. I think, in many respects, there's a lot more freedom going around here. So, for me, I don't like to maybe talk about the politics when I'm doing my videos, when I make YouTube videos. I'd rather just show the people, this is the life. I don't need to give an opinion. I just say, look, this is in front of me, and then they can make their own minds up. Because if I kind of, some people, they'll say, this is how Xinjiang is, da 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 da. People, some foreigners say, it's propaganda. So I'm trying to just show it in a way where people, can't get it twisted, and that's how it is. And a lot of people, they have been surprised. I think. So I hope I can continue doing that, because I think it might surprise a lot of people.
Well, can I ask you this? When was the first time you came to visit in Xinjiang?
2020, 2021. I think 2021, yeah.
In the very short time from your first visit to now, because this is what I'm told when I read data and statistics, there's a lot of economic activity. That's what the data says. Is that reflected in your experience? Have you seen an increase in prosperity or economic growth, or that kind of thing since your first visit to now, or is it basically the same?
Oh no, I think especially Urumqi. Wow, it's grown a lot. When I first went, I met some people, I remember, and I was like, are there any other foreigners here? And they said no. I think it was a little difficult at that time for foreigners to come. It was maybe a time where there wasn't that many tourists, and so there weren't many opportunities. And now you look at it, in the past year, there's been so many, and that's how I've had that opportunity to come here. The university, I met this guy in the medical university, and he was telling me how, so many foreign students are in there. They've got, because Xinjiang, they have their own local government, they have their own maybe local schemes,
right,
so
yeah.
They're trying to attract a lot of the foreigners to come into to Xinjiang. So many of the foreign students, they get scholarships, whereas maybe it'll be a little bit harder possibly in some other places in China. So I think they're really trying to attract those talents now. And also, Urumqi itself, it's always changing. You speak to the locals, they're always constructing new places. There's always some kind of new skyscraper. So maybe this place, for sure. And I recently went to Karamai, which maybe not many people have heard of. And Karamai, it's quite an interesting place. About 70 years ago, there was nothing there, no people. You go there now, it may be one of the most developed places in the whole of China, actually. I think it's the second largest GDP
Wow.
per capita in the whole of China,
Wow.
in mainland. And that is firstly because of the geography. You can use the desert, you can use the gusty winds, all of this, and the really cold winters. You can use all of that to help build GPU farms, and that's what you need for AI. So they've kind of made this AI hub all in Karamai. So I don't know, you might have heard of DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek, they have some of their bases in Karamai, in Xinjiang. So all of that compute is built in Xinjiang, and it gets sent over to Hangzhou in China. And so that's very interesting. So we're seeing, because AI, that's such an important thing for the economy, as that's growing and growing, Xinjiang itself is growing and growing. So I think that, yeah, I just went a couple months ago, and because I'm a PhD in AI, I thought it was a fascinating thing for me, but not many people would know. So maybe the next Silicon Valley, who knows?
Wow. I've also heard about, I mean, this is off point. I've heard about some companies in China are starting to submerge their data facilities in water, in like the ocean and stuff. So I think all kinds of things are happening in technology in China, but I am surprised to hear that. What about other minorities? Like the minority groups that I largely encountered were Kazakhs and Tuvans and Uyghurs, and then just the Han majority. So, what minority groups live there? What have you encountered? Have you had any strange experiences where you started speaking Uyghur to someone, and then they weren't a Uyghur speaker? Like, or do you notice different styles of clothing? I mean, anything like that?
Yeah, no, this question's good. I just happened 2 days ago, actually. So I was in Ely, and I was walking down this street, and this guy and his wife, they were shouting something to me in their car, and they looked, the woman looked Uyghur, so I replied back in Uyghur, and she kind of looked at me rather confused, and she spoke to me in Russian. I was like, what? And she asked me, do I speak Russian? I was like, oh, нет, нет. And we just both looked at each other for a while, like, what language should we be speaking? And the guy, he looked totally like a foreigner. So I spoke some English to him, which he didn't really speak too much of. And we both realized, hang on, we can both speak Chinese here. They were fluent in Chinese. And I was thinking, wow, these foreigners, they are really amazing. They really good at Chinese. But then, no, they are Chinese. They're Chinese people, but they are the Russian ethnicity. So it's because, I guess, many decades ago, a lot of the in these Soviet countries, maybe Kazakhstan or something. Yeah, I guess under the famine that maybe Stalin brought, that a lot of those Russians, they actually came from the USSR into Xinjiang, and so his grandparents, they came into China, and now, yeah, he is fully Chinese. He said he'd never been to Russia, and he's working there. So I think it's just fascinating to find these kind of things, these kind of people. There's 56 ethnicities in China, but and many of them are in Xinjiang. So traveling around, you do get to meet all of these, especially when you go to the borders. Yeah, so that was Ely. It's by the border, by Kazakhstan. So you'll meet a lot of Kazakhs there. You might meet some Tajiks. The Tajiks there, very friendly as well. And again, they'll speak totally different language. But again, it's very interesting because they'll use the Kazakhs, the Kyrgyz, the Uyghurs. They'll all use, and the Tajiks, they'll all use the Arabic style writing. So you can kind of, if you can read it, you can kind of understand, even though the spoken language is totally different. Mm-hmm. I guess it's like maybe Mandarin and Cantonese in a sense. But
fascinating. So the writing is very, very similar.
Yeah, exactly. Even though the spoken is totally different. So I guess they share that. But then when you go to Kazakhstan or whatever, they would use the Cyrillic writing and stuff. So I even went to Kazakhstan. They've got an Uyghur community there, and I wanted to buy some book actually for the Uyghur, but they only had it in the Cyrillic. I was very surprised. So the Uyghurs in Kazakhstan, they would use Cyrillic writing. They wouldn't use the Arabic. So I was like, oh, never mind then, because I can't read that. I wanted to learn the Arabic.
Actually, that's really fascinating in terms of you, actually, because you said you sat down with Uyghurs, they expected you to speak Uyghur, and you've been with Russians who expect you to speak Russian. Apparently, you can pass as quite a few ethnicities.
Maybe, yeah. When you're going around, there's not. Yeah, again, not too many. There are many foreigners from like Central Asia and that kind of thing. Um, Not too many from Europe and America. And so I mean, they do get quite surprised. But when they do find out, I think some people might think, oh, they might not like us or whatever, but they really do. They really love. They're very curious, and that makes it better. But also, when going around China, if I remember going to Guizhou, everybody looks at you because they're like, he's a foreigner. But then, people would scream, maybe, foreigner. But in Xinjiang, you can kind of pass as them. Because you kind of look kind of similar. They've got kind of whitish skin, like Turkic people.
Not me though. I was in ancient city of Kashgar, which is a special part of Kashgar for tourists. And when I was walking around, people just started speaking English to me. It was like, I guess it's because I look like the typical, fat American guy. People immediately were like, that guy is a lalai.
Really? Oh, okay. It might be also with like the you got to put some Uyghur clothes on or something. Maybe then they might change their mind. I don't know.
I want to ask you, you went to the border and you had a very special experience with the police. I would love to hear this story. Could you tell us about what happened?
Sorry, can you just repeat that again? Just think it cut out.
Sure. You went to the border and you had a very special experience with the police. Could you tell us about that experience?
Yeah, sure. So I went to the Tashkurgan. It's very far away, really remote place, and so to get there, I flew from Urumqi to Kashgar, and then I had an 8-hour drive into Tashkurgan. So it's so remote, such a tiny population, but it's so beautiful, and it's full of nature. So you've got the glaciers, you have beautiful mountains, you've got grasslands. It's so natural, and it's not too many tourists there, let alone a British guy. And so I went there, and I knew that Tashkurgan, it kind of sits on the border of 3 different countries. So you have Pakistan, Tajikistan, and then also Afghanistan. And Pakistan, I know there is the gate you can drive through, but I was quite interested. What about this Afghanistan border? And I'd heard for a while that you're not allowed to go there. There is actually no official gate. It's heavily militarized. There's so much military and police there. It's just not possible to go. But I did some research online, and I saw that I think CCTV, they did a documentary or some show in this little village, and that is apparently the closest village you can get to the Afghanistan border. So I figured, well, it should be okay to go. And I didn't want to be naive and stupid, so firstly I spoke to a local police, and then secondly I spoke to the government hotline. I said, hey, look, I'm a British guy, I want to go here. And they were like, yeah, no problem. But it was a different story when I did arrive. And I kind of, maybe I did the video of it, as you can see, I was kind of stood out like a sore thumb, like a total tourist with a football top, shorts, and this bucket hat, and my camera out. And I got there and I was interviewing firstly some Tajik people, and there was like some Tajik community there, and yeah, it was so nice. They were telling me all about life there, and the government, they subsidize their homes, they get money from that and lots of support, and they get like free medical care and things, even though they're in the middle of nowhere. But actually, these guys, they're like herders, and maybe they live a nomadic life. And so they told me, over there, that's probably the closest you can get but be careful, sort of thing. So I went over there, and as I was, this unmarked kind of police officer stopped me by, and he said, "Right, you need to come with us. We need to have a word with you." I was like, "Who are you? Are you the police?" And he was like, "Yeah." And my heart was pounding, but also with kind of excitement, because he was driving me even closer to the Afghanistan border. So in a way I was scared, but then also I was like, "Oh, this is maybe a once in a lifetime experience. Am I going to get kicked out or what?" And he was saying, he was very surprised. "Why are you here? What are you doing here? This is a kind of a restricted zone." And he took me to the police station there. And then the police asked for my passport. And they were very nice, actually. They were super friendly. I thought I was going to be in big trouble, but they just had a bunch of questions, like saying, "Oh, why are you so interested in this?" And hey, we actually make a Douyin, like a TikTok account. Do you mind? Like, could we actually we'd love to know. We'd love to use you to promote this place, actually, a foreigner coming here. And so they recorded me and stuff like that. And that's when I started to calm down a little bit. And they just said, "Yeah, look, you're the second foreigner, to ever visit this kind of like border stop. So we're just a bit surprised. That's it." And then they gave me a tour of their like police station, and they have lots of artifacts and things of from history with the Afghanistan border, and that was an absolutely amazing experience. And yeah, you can go there. It's just they just wanted to check. Of course, it's a sensitive border place. You're not allowed to go into Afghanistan from there, so they just want to double check. But it was all okay. It was all fine. And I think foreigners, they can go there, but if you do, you should probably just double check first. Call them just to let them know you're coming. But
be ready to be on their social media.
Yeah, absolutely. But I still haven't found it. I'm trying to look. I should have asked them at the time. What's your account? I just can't find it, but I'm probably somewhere out there. So if a listener's there, see if you can find it.
I saw one of your pieces about Kazakhstan when you were there. You went to the country Kazakhstan. How is it different from Kazakh culture in Xinjiang?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'd say that there's probably more Kazakh culture in Xinjiang than Kazakhstan itself, because I suppose as Kazakhstan became a Soviet region, they tried to remove a lot of that Kazakh culture, and for one generation at least, the Kazakhs cannot speak Kazakh at all in Kazakhstan. They would speak Russian. I think now the local government, they're doing a good job. They're trying to make it mandatory that you have to learn Kazakh if you are a Kazakh. But I was trying to interview some, and they couldn't read, and many people, they couldn't speak, even though they were the Kazakh ethnicity in Kazakhstan. And also, whereas in Xinjiang, it's all the Kazakhs I've spoken to, they can fluently speak it. And then also, I guess because in Xinjiang you get a lot more tourists, so the nomadic life is kind of encouraged here. A lot of people, they will live in the Kazakhs' yurts. They will go to visit their grasslands and everything, and there's a lot of money that goes into this. And so the Kazakhs, who traditionally are nomads, they can live this life through the mountains, they can kind of support that. Whereas in Kazakhstan, there's not many tourists, and so you don't really see so much of these people. It's very urbanized now. In the Soviet times, that was encouraged a lot more. A lot of people were taken from the countryside to work together under Stalin. So a lot of that culture was removed at that time. maybe they're slowly bringing it back, but I think in Xinjiang you can see probably more of it. And there are a lot of Kazakh regions in Xinjiang. I went to Tachang, Ili, these kind of places, and it's very interesting. But and also the local Xinjiang, like the Xinjiang Kazakhs, when they go into Kazakhstan, I've heard that they don't really get a very good reception or something. Maybe there's like a term for them. Like it's not just the Xinjiang people, just people who left Kazakhstan maybe many years ago, 100 years ago. They use some. It's called oralman. It's like a derogatory term for people who left, and so there is kind of some. Maybe some discrimination, possibly, some outside Kazakhs, but yeah, many of my Xinjiang Kazakh friends, they're very interested in going there, but they really like the life here because it's more supported, I suppose, and also the economy is doing really well here. There are some opportunities in Almaty, in Kazakhstan, so some people will go there to study, but I think Xinjiang actually has some better university at the moment. They've got some really good research places here. So I think in the past couple years, people are thinking, I'll just stay in Xinjiang.
That's fascinating, actually. I'm hoping Kazakhstan's economy grows because of the Belt and Road Initiative, the overland trade routes and so forth that are going to Africa and Europe. But, what you actually mentioned about preserving Kazakh language in Xinjiang reminds me of the Mongolian language in Inner Mongolia, because the country of Mongolia, they use a different writing system now, and they don't use the Mongolian script anymore. But if you go to Inner Mongolia and you look at signs and restaurants and so forth, they still use the Mongolian script, the original script. So it's been preserved better in Inner Mongolia than in the country of Mongolia. And what you're kind of telling a parallel here, where they've started using Cyrillic in Kazakhstan, whereas the Kazakh minorities in Xinjiang have preserved a lot of their original culture. It kind of just reminds me of that. It's kind of fascinating. Someone should do a study if they're not already doing that. While you've been in Xinjiang, among any minority groups or anything, have you encountered any taboos or any unusual cultures aspects that you didn't expect?
Let me think. Yeah, I guess there was one time I was in a restaurant when I first arrived in Xinjiang, and I had some watermelons. That the staff would often give some free fruit, maybe, and they gave some watermelon, and I was just on a table. I didn't know it was like a long table, and there were some people next to me. I was like, they were all Uyghurs, and I started eating this watermelon, and it was at a time when I didn't speak Uyghur, and she started shouting at me really loudly, and I was just like, what? Sorry. And she just like kind of like slammed the table. You cannot do this. I imagine in Uyghur, and someone then translated very awkwardly. She said, "Oh, I'm very sorry about her. Actually, it doesn't matter." But in our culture, it's like because we're Muslim, you shouldn't be eating the watermelon with your left hand. It should be with your right hand, and so you should always pick up with that. You shouldn't. And again, with writing with your left hand, you really should be doing.
Are you left-handed?
Yeah, I'm left-handed, but I feel a bit nervous to write now in front of people. I feel like I'm going to be told it, but that's the only time I've done it before using left hand. People don't know it, but some people they're very serious about the religion, and some maybe it's okay. It's he's a foreigner. He's not Muslim. So that was one thing maybe that surprised me, and also like when you receive a gift, you should take it with your right hand. Really, you should not be using your left hand for many things. So these kind of things I didn't know, and again, I tried to It's very much a British thing, like a Western thing, right? So when you greet somebody, you might hug them, and even maybe in Shanghai, some people may be a bit surprised. But wow, in Xinjiang, no, especially for girls, you shouldn't greet a girl by hugging them, and then and they get really embarrassed, and they were saying, "What are you doing this for? This is so embarrassing. You're not allowed to do this in our culture." And then I went, "Okay, I'll shake your hands." What are you doing that for? You're not meant to shake hands, are you? I've not been, I've not really experienced this kind of thing before. So now I'm trying to learn these cultures and things. But then when I go back to the UK, if I don't shake a girl's hand, maybe they'd find it offensive as well. So I need to remember.
Wow. So you just have to have different cultures for different locations.
Yeah.
You went to a wedding, a very special wedding. Could you tell us about that?
Well, I've been to several special weddings, but I guess the one you're
Wow.
talking about maybe is an American girl, Catherine.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
She does social media too, and it's all documented on there. But she was so busy with the wedding, she didn't record too much. So I think I did quite a lot of it, and I met Catherine 5 years ago in Shanghai. It was at some event, and so we've known each other for a long time. And then only in the past couple of years, she met this Uyghur guy. Actually, in the place where I nearly got arrested, right in Tashkurgan, she met this guy there, and an Uyghur man, and I met up with both of them in Urumqi before they got married. And they're so good together, so nice, such a lovely couple. And she's been learning the Uyghur language as well. He helps her to read and write, so she's doing a great job of that, getting into the culture. And she told me at first, the family maybe not too sure. She's a foreigner, she's non-Muslim as well. It could be a little sensitive. But when she really opened up to the culture, when she was learning the language, they were really happy. And that's when they were, because family is such an important thing. I know so many people actually in Xinjiang, they want to get married, the parents, they just won't let them. So the parent thing is a very important thing. So they invited me to the wedding a few months after I met them both. And yeah, it was a fantastic experience. It was in the rural little village of Shule next to Kashgar, and like one foreigner alone is surprising, but everyone was staring at us. There was so many of her American family and also some of her friends in Hangzhou, but it was great. And one thing that really stood out to me was, in the rural places, right, when you're in these weddings or whatever, that you open your door, okay? So you leave all of the doors were open in these rural villages, and they encourage locals, neighbors, to just come in at any time. And that's why you find actually the rural people, they're way more outgoing, way more extrovert. So in the wedding, people would just be randomly come in, and I'd be like, "Hey, who's that guy, by the way?" "Oh, I don't know. Never met him before." But he can come, no worries. And there were literally hundreds and hundreds of people coming in. It was just a brilliant experience. And yeah, it was. I don't know whether they'll do an American one as well, but it was mostly at Uyghur. So they wore the traditional Uyghur dressing and everything. But it goes on for a couple of days of the weddings. So it was 2 days.
A couple of days.
Rural part, yeah, and then the other bit was in the city centre, the place you said before, the ancient city. So that was fascinating experience. Lots of music, lots of dancing. I think the Uyghur weddings, wow, it's well worth going to.
That's actually one of my questions. One of the things people like to say is when there is footage of Uyghur people dancing, which there's a lot of, Well, I've seen it myself in public squares. I think the first time I went to Xinjiang, I think it was in Urumqi, and we went to the People's Square, which is a big square in the middle of town. And I left the main group to go do this. All the other journalists went to some bazaar, and I just left and went off to this square. And there was just hundreds of people dancing, different boom boxes, different stereos, different groups of people dancing. A lot of what gets said is those people are forced to dance, and so what is your experience? Do people really love dancing as much as it seems out there?
No, it's unfortunate. I was walking home yesterday, and the police took me aside, and they said, "Look, you need to dance now." You know, they were forcing me on the spot. Yeah, otherwise you're going to jail. No, of course not. Don't get forced to dance at all. It's genuinely part of the culture. I remember going for my birthday, and because I just arrived in Xinjiang, and these people, I just met them like once before, and we went to the mountain. I really wanted to go for my birthday up this mountain, and then yeah, they brought some of their friends as well. And when we got to the top, this guy, I noticed he brought like his guitar with him. He just took it out, and then everyone just started singing and dancing, just like, I was like, whoa, okay. It was just, totally unscripted and everything. And they would be singing a lot of Uyghur songs, some English songs for me as well. And it was going on for a long, long time. You go to, that's one thing I really love, right, is the nightlife in Xinjiang as well. So you go to many bars, and they'll have a lot of Uyghur music, and maybe if you go to some places around the world, just be sitting down, chilling, maybe with your drink. In Xinjiang, no, people they'll get up, they'll start dancing, and it's a great thing. So you really get involved with it, and it's and now before I hated dancing, but now I guess it's part of the culture. You got to do it. You got to, otherwise you won't fit in. So yeah, no, I love it. And actually, one thing I remember is I remember I started to learn to dance because I thought I won't fit in otherwise. So I was going on like TikTok, and I mastered this dance, like the Uyghur dance, and I was happy with it. And so I decided, next time I'm gonna do this dance. I'm really good at it now. And so I went to the Grand Bazaar, and people were dancing, and they invited me, and I did this dance. I rehearsed it so many times, and then people were just like looking at me, laughing, and they were like, "What is he doing?" And then they were like, "Hey, you should stop." I was like, "Oh, did I do it wrong?" No, but this is a dance for girls. So we have a dance for boys and for girls, and you were doing the wrong one. So I was like, oh no, okay, yeah, maybe it makes sense with how I was doing it. But the boy one is a little harder, so I'm trying to do that now.
Wow. What about hospitality? I also saw recently you went to someone's home, which looked opulent, by the way. It looked like those people are well off, and then in my opinion. What is your experience with Uyghur hospitality or Kazakh hospitality or just local hospitality? You mentioned in the rural areas people just leave their door open. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I think you can really feel it in the festivals. So you have Eid, an Islamic festival, which is about you sacrifice a lamb to Allah, and so the rich families, they will all purchase a lamb, and again, that's kind of how these maybe Kazakh nomads they can survive. They make a lot of money from this. Not just a lamb, maybe it could be a camel even sometimes, maybe a horse. It could be quite expensive, a few $1,000s, but a lamb, I think a few hundred. And what happens is once you sacrifice the lamb, you would, because it's so much, you would give the many parts of it to your community. Yeah, you would share it in your neighborhoods, especially to the poor people. So you would leave your door open in these times, and people would come in and be like, "Hey, look, let me give you some lamb. Let me give you some food." So it's very much pronounced in these festivals that you can see how hospitable, how kind the people are. So I've seen it, so many times where people, especially when they know I'm a foreigner, they'll come and invite me and give me some tea. And often in these big houses, they'll have like a grapevine and they'll just give me a bunch of grapes or something. And say, hey, just take it home. So, it's, I guess they live such a nice life. It's not much stress outside of the cities. Maybe in Urumqi it's a bit different because there's a lot of high-rise apartments, and maybe you don't see it too much like that there. But in the rural places or other cities, very much so. And but even when I went to, for example, Hotan, I remember I went there and I went in. I ordered a taxi, not the black taxi, but a normal one. But I said, hey, look, I want to go to this restaurant, and so I went. And then as I came out, so I finished my dinner. I came out, and the taxi driver was still there, and he was waving at me. He said, "Oh, hey, I want to give you a free tour of this city." I was like, "Oh, no, it's okay. No worries." He said, "Where are you going next?" And I said, "This place." He said, "Okay, let me take you." And I was insistent I wanted to give him money, but he hid his QR code and everything. He said, no. And he got out at this place and he said, "Right, let's walk around. Let me show you." And we went around. He said, "Oh, one moment. I just quickly gonna get something from the shop, some water." I was like, "Okay, sure." And he came out with this big bag of dates and some other snacks. He said, "This is for you." And he's just a taxi driver, which I imagine won't be making too much money. And that really warmed my heart. I was so surprised. He'd never met a foreigner before. Hotan is a majority Uyghur city. And the people there, wow, they were so friendly. Money isn't an issue for many of them. Many people, they live wealthy lives, but they're so warming and so sharing, and you see that with all sorts of people. So yeah, not just the Uyghurs, but the Kazakhs as well. Yeah.
I have a lot of other questions, but we're actually out of time. I'd love to do this again in the future. As long, you keep living there, you keep stacking up these stories, and we'll have lots to talk about. I think a lot of people are very interested in Xinjiang, and you do have a very special life in that you get to live there and experience all of these amazing stories, especially being on the police social media. It's just amazing stories. Thank you so much for your time, Luke.
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. I really enjoyed talking to you, Jason. Thank you so much.